And you are live.
Okay. If I could get a motion approval of our previous meeting minutes.
Motion to approve previous minutes.
I have a
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We have one piece coming before us. It's an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts for certain repairs and upgrades at Canal Park Stadium and declaring an emergency. Mr. Lettle?
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. Today, we are going to talk about Canal Park Stadium, and with us is the owner of the Rubber Ducks, Mr. Ken Babby. So I am, at some point, I'm going to turn it over to him. But what I want to talk to you about is some long-term, and obviously you all know that 25 years ago, we broke ground on the stadium, and we had the first game 24 years ago in April next month. So with that, we've been looking, we've done some improvements over the years, but it's getting to the point where these improvements that are needed are basically caused by water damage. And whether there's some roof repairs, a lot of the concrete bowl needs to be resealed. We've got joint repairs, we've got the diamond boardwalk, and all this water, unfortunately, when you have a lot of the infrastructure underground, it's causing a lot more damage, and we need to mitigate that. We were going to put this project together and hopefully bring it to you in the fall or for next year, but doing some more evaluation with our engineering department and some outside people, it's just that we're preventing it's going to cause more damage. So with that, in this legislation, I just want to explain our long-term lease with them, and it's been a fantastic partnership with the Rubber Ducks and the owner, Mr. Babby and his staff. But we do have the responsibility to take care of these things, and you can't. He's going to talk about some of the funds that he's put in, and it's quite a bit of remodeling. But when the roof leaks, you just can't keep putting money in. You need to stop the water from coming in. So immediately out of this legislation, about 200,000 is work that we're going to try to get done in the next month or 6 weeks. The season starts May 4th, and we're very excited about that. I know he has limited capacity, but we're hoping as things loosen up with the pandemic and vaccines, that number will grow. He's always entertained all our local high schools. They play games there, and I think the first game next week is there. I think it's April 8th. I'm not sure who's playing, but it's always nice to see those young men. And I mean, all three of my sons had the opportunity to play there, but that was many years ago because I'm old. But what we're going to talk about today too is the seats. They're just literally falling apart. And part of that package is we have to sign a letter of intent with Hussey, the manufacturer, and about out of this legislation, about $1 million of this dollars won't be spent till next year. So this year we're going to put the order in as soon as the season's over, and after they win the Eastern League again. Mr. Babby, put a little pressure on you. We are going to do the demo and all that concrete sealing, and that can be done in cold weather. We will not have a problem. And then when the weather breaks, the new seats will could go in. So with that, I want to turn it over to Mr. Babby, and he wants to talk a little bit about what's going on with this project.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to be here, Chris. Thank you so much, and great pleasure to be with all of you, seeing so many familiar faces. It is hard to believe, but when we open our season and swing open the gates on May the 4th at Canal Park, it will have been 20 months since we've played a game at Canal Park. This pandemic, probably from a timing perspective, on the baseball business has been, as many people can imagine, with many more and more serious issues that have impacted our local economy and community here in Northeast Ohio. It has been a very difficult period, certainly in our business as well. But we are committed to getting back. We're working very closely with the Summit County Health Department and the Ohio Department of Health. And we are really excited for opening day. Capacity yet to be determined. We're working through those details, but you have our commitment that we are really excited about bringing safe, affordable, family fun back to downtown and opened downtown, by the way, Chris, I might add. Downtown on Main Street looks terrific. Maybe one of the silver linings of the pandemic, perhaps, is that we're back to business in a beautiful downtown on Main Street. So I want to thank Chris and his team. Chris is correct. We've enjoyed a wonderful partnership, which I know many of you are familiar with, and even a few council members that were here when I came to council the very first time to sign that lease many years ago. You'll recall it's a 30-year lease that the Rubber Ducks made with the city of Akron. We still have a long, long way to go, and actually, in the midst of the pandemic, exercised an option to extend that lease. Through the duration of our time here, nearly since 2012, we've made $8.1 million of private improvements to Canal Park. Those are non-taxpayer paid private improvements to create our Tiki Terrace, renovating the suite level, creating the Duck Club, opening the Game Grill and Bar, and the space that you see that I'm virtually seated in right now, our Foul Territory picnic space. And we do hope to resume picnics in some sort of modified virtual fashion, not non-virtual, in-person fashion later this spring and summer. So, but Chris is correct. The ballpark, as you would in maintaining your house, a 25-year-old facility in Northeast Ohio in the Midwest needs the attention. And we were really proud when we built this lease. Originally, there were certain obligations that are the responsibility of me and my team, which we've committed to, and more so in terms of our improvements to the facility. But there are also some obligations structurally, seating, et cetera, that the city has on its plate as well. And so at this point, Chris and I and his team have spent a lot of time. I want to give credit to Scott Riley, our VP of operations, that has been working really hard to prepare this plan. We have some immediate needs, which Chris can run through at a high level for projects that just simply have to be completed before we open the gates on May 4th, related majority to water damage. And then obviously the seats that are in the ballpark are the original seats that were installed in 1996 ahead of the 1997 season. And as great as the ballpark looks, those seats are in a state of disrepair. We have no auxiliary supply, and actually the seating manufacturer doesn't maintain or manufacture those types of seats any longer. So with that, I'll turn it back to Chris. I'm also happy through the council president to answer any questions that have come up. But please know that our commitment to Akron is alive and well. And I should also add that we just signed this offseason a 10-year extension agreement, restructuring with Major League Baseball, confirming that baseball is alive and well as a Cleveland Indian affiliate here at Canal Park for at least a decade to come. We hope much, much longer than that, with a commitment to the city. So I just want to thank the mayor, Chris, and the team, and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ken. And I just want to add on to that, unfortunately, we saw when they reduced the number of minor league teams around the country, our stadium fared very well. Okay, there are some changes that they're requiring, maybe additional locker rooms for female umpires, that type of thing, or space, which aren't real big changes, but the condition our stadium's been in and the commitment by city council supporting us is one of the reasons why they weren't going to eliminate our team. So we're very happy about that and Ken's commitment. So with that, we will take any questions.
Right. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Chris. I just had a few questions. So the projects that you're going to do right now, is it just the seating, or are you going to address the roofing issues as well?
Well, in your legislation, it's 2.9 million. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
About 2.7 is the seating. Okay. And when I say the seating, it's the seats, it's the installation, and it's all the concrete repair to the bowl area. The other 200,000 is there's like the ticket window. If you go down to the ticket office, they literally have a trash bag over the cash register. The roof's leaking, water's coming through the window. So we're going to replace the windows and put a new roof on that. In the suite level, the water's coming through not only the roof, but some of the windows where it's come up. The windows need to be tucked and pointed, the concrete. So those are the type of things. And, like the ticket window is like 7,500. But when you look at the Diamond Boardwalk and the pavement, it's 35,000. And then the leak over the main transformers where the water's coming in, where electrical comes in, that's around 5,000. The suite level leak. So all those add up to just under 200,000. Those are those immediate urgent needs. And we didn't think by bringing that in and then another piece, so we wrapped it into one piece of legislation.
Okay. So, will you be able to have the seats installed in time before your season opener? I know with COVID, it seems like deliveries seem to just take forever to get from point A to point B.
Well, actually, the seats, what we want to do with this, they're going to stay in for the 2021 season. So
Okay.
we need to put the order in now or by June, sometime early June, so they could start manufacturing the seats. And then as soon as the season's over, we will do the demo or the contractor will do the demo of all the seats. And then all the concrete, all that stuff will be done. And then we'll start getting the seats in probably January or February, hopefully, and then they can start being installed. So prior to the 22 opening day, the seats will be installed.
Okay, sounds good. I have a question. Do I have any questions from committee members before I go to council? I am looking, and my first question is from Councilman Fusco.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Babby, thank you for all you've done for Akron and for the Ducks and your significant investment here. Certainly appreciate it in a big way. And a couple quick questions though. The scoreboard, how are we doing on the scoreboard? Obviously, it's been a while since we've been there, a couple of years, but how is that holding up?
Yeah, great question. You may remember, Councilman, that we came to council very early on in our series of the first tranche of improvements when I first was fortunate to buy our team here in town and installed a $3.5 million video board project. It is in great shape. We continue to pay the maintenance on that annually, replacing the cells when it's necessary. I think the video board itself was about 1.6 million out of those first tranche of 3.5 million in initial contributions, privately funded, and so it's in great shape. And we're very fortunate. We have a great manufacturer. I want to give credit to our operations team, Scott Riley and Adam Horner, that work tirelessly to make sure that, again, I always reference, this is like your house. If you take care of it, if you pay the maintenance bill, if you do the right things annually, hopefully the longevity on these pieces of equipment last a long time. My hope is that the seats that we're investing in today, also have a 2-decade lifespan. That's an incredible lifespan for ballpark seats in an environment where it snows and gets as cold as it does. But we also, it's part of the reason why we picked the vendor that we did.
Good, thank you. The last question, how are we doing on the lighting?
So the lighting's in terrific shape. Thanks to this council's approval last year, we came in and installed brand new LED lighting to meet major league specification ahead of the process that Chris mentioned. I think that's one of the most important things to keep in mind is that as we get evaluated by Major League Baseball, we want to be a step ahead on those inspections. We don't want city council or the mayor receiving letters from Park Avenue, New York, saying that we're out of compliance on these, as a lot of minor league cities had. And of course, that's ultimately what led to some teams losing their franchises. Again, Chris alluded to it, but we went from 160 minor league clubs down to 120. And the determination as to the clubs that were ultimately kept a part of the system were a function of the decisions that this council body has made. So I think it is our responsibility as a team to continue to bring those issues forward to council to avoid those kinds of problems. But I must also add, particularly during these times in a year like this, and I think many of you know me well personally, we are really, really judicious about the types of requests that we need from the city. And where possible, we're going to privately invest to take the burden as we can off the city. These are projects that are a part of the city's responsibility in our lease, and we're asking for your support in approving these necessary maintenance improvements.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Babby. And having been one of those folks who were around at the very, very beginning, yep. The very first opening day back in the day, also had that experience in terms of, two different owners. And we are so blessed to have Mr. Babby here.
Thank you.
It's been pretty well documented, how he started out there. But having Mr. Babby here and seeing, and working with the city, making sure that we do stay out ahead of the curve, if you will, in terms of investment and making sure that this significant investment that we've made in our downtown continues to thrive. So thank you again, Mr. Babby, for all you've done for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman, and I appreciate that. That means a lot.
So I have a question. I'm going to jump to Councilman Lombardo because he's on the committee, and then Councilman Malik after that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And also, I would like to thank Mr. Babby too for his participation in the stadium downtown. It's a great asset to have for Akron and all surrounding areas. So I just had a question for Mr. Babby though regarding the netting that I know that a few years ago, Major League Baseball, and it seemed like we were expanding the netting to make it a little bit safer for all fans. So is the netting project all completed now?
It is, and in fact, shame on me for using this as my virtual background. This is a photo before the netting was officially installed. But you can imagine behind me. Look at the boy and the family, sort of to my, I guess would be my left, your right, and you could imagine that entirely exposed space for a foul ball coming all the way down the line, and the same was down the right field line as well. We actually again led this ahead of Major League Baseball's requirement and Minor League Baseball's requirement to install, with Chris and the service director's office's help, the netting all the way down the line, down to the end of the foul pole. So we haven't actually played a season at all with those nets yet because last year got canceled. But this will be the first season in 2021 with that new netting project installed. And I have to tell you, because I've seen it, it looks terrific. It really doesn't impede the view at the ballpark. The netting company that we used really was the best in the country. It's really, really professionally installed well, and will enhance the experience at the ballpark in keeping people safe. That is my worst nightmare of an incident happening. And I think we can all sleep well at night knowing that we now have one of the safest facilities in the country. So thanks for bringing that up, Councilman.
Thank you. Look forward to going to a few games this year.
Can't wait to see you.
Councilman Malik.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Luddle and Mr. Babby. As the others have said, very thankful for your partnership with the city and your investments. And I know it was hard last year for the team, but I'm excited for Rubber Ducks baseball here this spring. Two questions, either Mr. Luddle or Mr. Babby, if you want to jump in. First, could we get a little bit of a more detailed breakdown, maybe document in terms of the specific costs? And then the second is, when we're talking about, the next 10 years, what are the big ticket items that we're going to be looking at investments beyond the roof and the seats over the next couple of years? Do we know that now?
Sure. First of all, I'll send you all the breakdown of all the individual items that we'll be doing. I can send that over this afternoon. And as far as big ticket items, you guys passed last year the HVAC upgrades. There's 47 heat pumps, I believe, throughout the stadium. And we are going to be putting that system on our district energy. So we are going to eliminate all those heat pumps for the air conditioning, and we are going to be putting in a central cooling system with our chilled water from our district energy plant. So there's a significant savings, not only on greenhouse gases from the electric, but also making it a more efficient system by using, and that was part of the Main Street project, by putting new chilled water lines and new steam lines down through Main Street. You have to get that infrastructure done first. So that's one of the things. We put that off because of equipment. I think Councilwoman Samples alluded to the delays on equipment. So we have ordered the equipment. As soon as the season's over, we'll be installing that system. But those monies have been budgeted already for the upgrades to the HVAC system.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from council members? I don't see any. Mr. Little, what would be your pleasure?
Consent's fine.
Are you sure?
Well, we're going to get this going. So, I mean, if everybody's comfortable before I send them the detailed list, but
Well, I want to make a motion, ask for a motion for suspension of the rules.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, and we will vote on this evening. And if we have nothing else coming before us, good luck, Mr. Babby. We are adjourned.
Thank you all. Can't wait to see you back in the ballpark in a few weeks.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your support.
Okay, our next committee of the day is the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, Samples, Swirsky, Malik, and McKittrick. We have all committee members present except for Councilman Swirsky. Mr. Chair, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Like Sarah said, all committee members are present except for Councilman Swirsky. We did hold a meeting last week, so can I get approval of those minutes, please?
Motion to approve the previous minutes.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. So we do not have no new legislation in front of us, but we do have one piece that we brought in last week as a substitute. I'm sure everybody had a week to look at it. Let me see if there's any discussion. If not, I would entertain the time to put this to a vote. So what I'll do is I'll look to see if there's any questions from committee members or possible discussion. They don't look like that, so I'll move to any other council members. Right now, the hands raised function, I do not see. I do see Councilman Lombardo. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So looking at the legislation here, it says that beginning in 2024, City Council will review the towing districts, including assignments thereof, at least once every 5 years, although we could change that. So in 2024, we could possibly redesign towing districts within the city of Akron. We could make some bigger, smaller. I guess where I'm going with this is that, you know, if our whole goal is to make this fair and equitable, are we looking at, or will we be looking at each towing district having equal square miles and things like that? So I just kind of wanted to know the definition of how we'll be reviewing the towing districts and the assignments thereof in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm not sure if one of the co-sponsors wants to chime in and answer that. I do see maybe Councilman Fusco. I saw you unmuted, so that's why I referred to you.
Thank you, Chairman Kamer. Well, the thing of it is in 24, absolutely, that's going to be up to the council, and this wouldn't be, we'll not be entertaining proposals till July of 24, giving council the first 6 months of the year, basically, and it was by the design that way. If that council, I don't know if I'll be here, I don't know who's going to be here, or who's not going to be here at that time. But that will give that council an opportunity to review the districts in the areas, and if they wish to take on the responsibility of redesigning every district, then that would be up to them at that time. As well as we also have an asset in that we have the towing review board, which they could probably assist that council at that time in terms of doing that. But I wouldn't want to be, I don't think it's at this point, it's our place to do that. I believe what's proposed right now is what has been in the best interest of all parties that we've been working with. They are all very much on board in terms of what's been proposed here. This is basically meshing two different proposals into one, and a lot of back and forth, a lot of negotiation, and as with any negotiation, as with any proposal, with the breadth of this, I don't know if everyone's 100% happy, but then again, I think this is something, and this is where government is kind of at its best, where we negotiate and we come up with something that everyone can work with. And so this is just that. But in terms of 24, we'll leave that to that council at that time.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco. Councilman Lombardo, anything else?
Yes, actually there is. So on page 3, it mentions that, let's say it says effective January 1st, 2025, towing companies that share a common owner shall not be assigned to more than one towing district. So at this time, I believe, looking at my map, we have Bowers and Wilson's are the same owner or the same locations, as well as, I believe it's Stan's and Greg's. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So right now, does that mean we're giving them notice that in 4 years, they're going to lose one of those 2 towing districts?
Thank you, Councilman.
I'm assuming that common owner, I mean, it's the same mailing address, so I assume it's the common owner.
Thank you, Councilman. I'll yield to Councilman Fusco, because I know I was involved in that, but I know he actually was really involved in that section. So, Councilman.
Yeah, I believe it's, again, this is going to be weighed in. We're asking for recommendations from the Towing Review Board, and they will advise City Council on the proposals at that time. But the intent there was that that no one individual towing company will have 2 districts. That's the goal. That's the intent. And I believe we're all kind of on board with regards to that in terms of language. We can touch base with the law department. I see Rebecca's on board here, but I believe we're kind of all aligned in terms of ensuring that we do not have one individual owning 2 districts. That's definitely on top of mind in terms of designing this particular ordinance.
Well, I'm just confused. We have they're different towing companies, but are they not the same owner between, let's just stick with Bowers and Wilson's? So are they being notified now that in 2025, they can't have both, District 8, towing District 8? No, I'm sorry. District 1 and District 2.
I would encourage you what's going to happen is in July of 24, we're going to accept proposals from towing companies to take on police towing in the city of Akron. Okay, that's going to occur. Okay. And again, with this proposal, we're saying we do not want one company to have 2 districts. We don't want that to happen. And what we're saying, I believe, with this ordinance is that we're not going to do that. We're not going to give a company 2 districts. What's happened historically in the past is that a company would sell to another company, okay, and and what's happened in the past is these have gone to court, okay, because it wasn't defined in our ordinances. This is defining it in our ordinance, saying that we do not want that. So up to the council, obviously, at that time, whenever they receive these proposals and they would award a company to do the actual police towing in our city, it's going to be up to them to ensure that they do not give a company 2 districts.
Well, we don't have a company with 2 districts right now, right? If
I'm
you're,
sorry?
but we don't have a company with 2 districts now, right?
We do have a company. We have 2 companies with 2 districts.
Okay, so, and one of the examples is Bowers and Wilson's,
Yes.
right? So you're calling them the same company with 2 different districts,
Same ownership.
same ownership. So in 2024, they're not going to have, one of them's got to drop, if I'm understanding this, right?
Well, in 2024, we're going to entertain proposals, okay? In 2020, in July of 20, we will receive proposals. After we receive the proposals, we will get a recommendation from the towing review board, who will then tell us, who they recommend. Ultimately, the decision will come up to city council, okay? And what we're saying in this legislation here is we're not going to do that. We're not going to give a person, and in business, what happens is sometimes a business can have a different name, but the same owner can own 2 different businesses, but it's the same person. We're trying to avoid that. In the past, we've had that. We have 2 companies that have 2 districts. They've gone over the years, and council hasn't visited this. This is very complex and hard to understand. That's why it took so long to kind of put this whole thing together. So, but yeah, that's the goal, and the intent is to receive the proposals, 1 company, 1 district. And that's, and this here, for the short run, what we're doing is taking those 2 companies that have 2 districts, cutting those districts in half in essence, and awarding them to 2 companies that are new. And then they'll have an opportunity to provide these services.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco and Lombardo. I do see Councilman Malik has his hand up too.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just kind of want to echo what Mr. Fusco said a little while ago, that, this is a result of compromise. And I just want to thank all 3 of the sponsors, Ms. Samples, Mr. Kamer, and Mr. Fusco, for a lot of diligent work in getting this to where it is now. I know this is an issue that a lot of people have worked on for many years, but I think, it's really good from my perspective to see all of us coming together. And these compromises are messy, right? I'm not a fan of every last provision in here. I think over time, especially when we look to 2024, I really would like to see these decisions being made, almost entirely by the Police Towing Review Board. I don't really think council needs to be picking winners and losers in this business. And frankly, I think that, what we're doing now, to Mr. Lombardo's point, is kind of putting these folks on notice that, this has been the system for a long time, but, come 2024, 2025, we understand you've made investments, but the system is going to change. It's going to be more competitive, but I would like to thank all 3 of the sponsors for their efforts here.
Thank you, Councilman Malik. I appreciate that. Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have some concern that mirrors what Councilman Lombardo said, and I really have a concern kicking this down the road for potentially another council to have to address that potentially may not have the historical knowledge. I mean, we're 4 years in, which is something, again, I'd like for us to evaluate why it took us 4 years to address this issue. But I think if we're really talking about doing right, I'd like for us to address this before this council is over. And the other thing is, to Mr. Malik's point, I think because of the way we know how systems work, and because we have not addressed the systems, I think the responsibility still should lie with council to make the decision. Because we know that, and this is something that, these aren't just mere words that we use, but systems are hard to change. And this has existed the way it has, and there wouldn't have been any request for change unless it came from council. There would have been no request for this, the way things work, to change if that would not have come from council. So my only thing is, I wish the collaboration would have came 4 years ago, but we're here and I'm thankful for that. Now I'd like to see us put hard dates for us to finish the work. So to that point, Mr. Chair, again, as we look at this, I would like to see where this council fully resolves this issue and puts good policy in place so that whoever comes behind us won't have anything to deal with where that council may not have the historical knowledge that we have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Councilman Fusco?
I would like to yield to Ms. Samples, my co-sponsor. I've spoken.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco. Just briefly wanted to thank my colleagues for the work that we put in trying to get to a point where it was fair and equitable. For a start, I do want to reassure Councilman Lombardo that although 2025 may seem far down the road, we still have to keep those who are in the district in consideration as we move to change how things have been done forever. They still have employees. They still are doing work. So I think us doing it gradually helps them to navigate a system that is going to change, a system that they've been in, so that they can make plans down the road of how that looks for them as a business. The one thing we do not want to happen is to have people unemployed and not having jobs. So I think that because we're taking the steps that we're taking in this legislation, it allows them to really think about how that looks for them and just moving forward in a positive way and knowing that the ones that are being added to the system are appreciative of that and they understand that. So I do want to thank Councilman Kamer and Councilman Fusco for us being able to put aside our differences and really having a conversation about what that looks like to be fair and equitable, to bringing them in, but also being considerate of the ones who've been there and making sure that they're not affected by that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Fusco, you still want to?
Yeah, just briefly, just very well put, Ms. Samples. Thank you for that, for those comments. It's so true. Trying to put these companies on notice. And I can tell you this to all my colleagues here, having conversations with these tow companies who spent money to purchase these districts. They spent money. They bought more equipment. They had to expand their yards in some cases. They had to hire more people. It's a business. So yes, we didn't have any restrictions on owning two districts under one ban or under one ownership. We didn't have that, and now we will. The thing of it is, and Mr. Neal, I totally agree with you. Systems are hard to change. Yes, they are. Yes, that's exactly true. That's why it took so long, because we knew that this was going to be messy, a lot of hard work, and not easy to do. And we would have to listen to every voice out there and try to manage something that's going to totally, as I mentioned, when this was first introduced, over 50, this was the first introduction, had 50 adjustments, if you will. 50 things were looked at and changed. And so this is very comprehensive. This just isn't saying, you get this district and you get that, or half of this and that. It wasn't that at all. It was a lot of work, tons of work. And the majority of that, Mr. Kamer did, to be honest and frank. But then again, there was also conversations. I know Ms. Samples had conversations with folks, and so did I as well. And but it was a lot of work, and it was messy. But hey, we're here now, and I'm very proud of what we see, what we have to vote on. I'm very proud of that, and the work we've done here today. I mean, over the last several months, actually, if almost years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco. And I just want to thank Councilman Fusco, you, and obviously Councilwoman Samples that we were able to come together and bring this to council as a whole. With that, I'm looking at the chat section. I do not see no hands raised, so I'll ask the committee what they would like to do moving forward.
Councilman Kamer, I'd like to make a motion for suspension of the rules.
All right, I do have a motion.
Second.
And I have a second by Councilman McKittrick. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. And that is all we have for public safety. Thank you once again for everybody and their input. With that, we're adjourned.
Okay, our next committee of the day is the Rules Committee. Those committee members are Freeman, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Malik. We do have all committee members present except for Freeman, so Councilman Fusco will be chairing this committee. We're ready when you are.
Thank you, Sarah Viviano. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
So moved.
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you all for that. Against? None. Of course, we have one item, I do believe, that's on our agenda on our new list of legislation. Looking here, I don't think we have anything on our old list. So the new item that we have is, in fact, it's offered by McKittrick, supporting and protecting the Right to Organize Act, also known as HR 842, urging the U.S. Senate to pass HR 842 and declaring emergency. Mr. McKittrick, would you like to comment on this particular piece?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This passed the U.S. House of Representatives and is presently it's in the Senate. If you look back through history of the United States and you look at sweatshops, they had to institute child labor laws because of the misuse in labor. In 1935, FDR signed the National Labor Relations Act. And since then, there have been groups who have fought against the rights of labor, and the factions continue to try to break unions and weaken workers' rights. Union membership has been on decline since 2000 and to present, and other than just 2006 to 2008, where there was a slight uptick. And despite that decline, of the American people, 68% of the people polled would like to join the union if they could. That number equals about 60 million people who would like to join a union. If we look of recent, we've seen right to work. If you look at right to work states, you can see that the pay for those employees in those states are quite a bit lower than the states who do not have right to work. Also with the Janus decision from the Supreme Court, that also changed where people who did not want to belong to a union but had to pay fair share to be protected by the unions didn't have to do that anymore, which again weakened the unions because they still had to protect those employees, and it lessened their rights as far as that. If you look back a few years ago, we had Senate Bill 5 come before the state of Ohio. It was defeated. I should say it won, defeating what was put into play against the labor. And if you look at all that and you look at the disparity, it also protects people who have notoriously been paid less. When you look at this difference between men and you look at with women, you look at minorities, this also will protect them. This act will actually, it will give a little bit of bolster to the actual Labor Relations Act that was signed back in 1935 and start to protect our workers again. I'm asking for passage by the committee and by all tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. McKittrick. And with all respect, I'd like to request that my name be added. Would that be okay with you? As a
Yes,
primary-
thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vivian. I'd like to add my name. And as a product of that kind of quasi sweatshop environment, no, I stand with you, Mr. McKittrick, and thank you for bringing this in. Obviously, we've seen a slow erosion of workers' rights in not only Ohio, but nationally. And that's the constant push and pull that we've seen from management and labor over the years. And so thank you for bringing this in. I do see Mr. Malik's hand up. Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I also stand in favor of this resolution. I think Mr. McKittrick did a great job at, kind of describing the history of the labor movement. I think particularly we've seen, partisan courts and the partisan Supreme Court really deal some pretty difficult blows to the labor movement and to people's right to organize. And I think that this legislation before Congress would help dramatically. I think particularly just want to spotlight, the plight of gig workers, right, who are sort of classified as independent contractors by these multi-billion-dollar companies like Uber and Lyft and what have you. And we've seen, especially in California, at the end of last year, huge effort by those companies to write rules and to overrule, existing state legislation that, to make sure that they don't have to treat these folks like employees, to make sure they don't have to make sure they have health care, things like that. And kind of use, cutesy rhetoric when it's clear these are employees, and so I think those are the kinds of things we are all going to be confronted with in the years to come. And certainly, labor costs are high, but they're high because, there's dignity in work, and that should be accompanied with the ability to make a living and to put food on the table. And so I think we all support that. I would like to add my name to this resolution as well, if that's acceptable.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Malik. I see Ms. Mobian, your hand's up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I too support this. People forget that we have benefits and rules and guidelines and workplace standards because of the labor movement. I mean, people were working in awful conditions prior to that. So I certainly strongly support this. My father worked in a labor environment for years, but because it was down south, they didn't get the kind of protection a lot of people got. But anyway, I certainly support this. And I think it will probably be beneficial for the mayor and council as a whole, but I guess we'll do that tonight. But thank you very much, Mr. McKittrick.
Ms. Mobian, thank you. Further questions or comments from any of the committee members? Anyone? Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing anyone. At this point, I'd like to entertain Mr. Malik.
Yeah, I was just going to do what I think you were going to do. I'd like to make a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Absolutely. Can I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of suspension of the rules with a favorable report signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Very good. The ayes have it. We will report that out favorable this evening. And at that time, we'll entertain a motion for mayor and council as a whole. Thank you. Anything else to come before the committee? We're not hearing anything. So therefore, we're adjourned. Turning it back over to Ms. Viviano. Is this the last meeting of the day or is there one more?
We have a few more. Our next one will be the Public Utilities and Green Committee. Those committee members are Swirsky, Freeman, Connor, Samples, and McKittrick. Councilman Swirsky and Councilman Freeman are not here today, so Councilwoman Connor, you will be chairing. We're ready when you are.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion to approve the last minutes?
Motion to approve the previous minutes.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. This motion is offered by Councilman Freeman It's an ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept and expend grant funding from the Environmental Protection Agency for the creation of a conservation easement and to preserve wetlands located in the Burton Wetland Complex, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into an agreement or agreements with a contractor or consultant for services related to the conservation and preservation of the wetlands subject to the conservation easement and declaring an emergency. Is there anyone here to speak on this?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of committee.
Thank you.
This is 335 acres up in our watershed. So these are class 3 wetlands. We have done some evaluation of our watershed, and we feel that these wetlands need to be preserved, and we're putting an easement on them, obviously forever. There's no real use to these wetlands other than there could be no development on these wetlands. They border the Cauga River. I'm going to try to share my screen, actually. It might be easier to understand if I could do this. Let's see if I can make this work. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so if we start down south here, we'll take a little drive. All the way down at the water plant, down the Cauga River, at Lake Rockwell. So this little circle here, that's our plant. And then this is Lake Rockwell. As you know, it's about 2 billion gallons. And then if you go north up the Cauga River, you'll see Ladue. Ladue, that's a huge reservoir. It's about 6 billion gallons. And as we continue to go up here in Burton and Geauga County, these 2 circles here are the area that are class 3 wetlands, all land that we own. We are going to get about $450,000 for these wetlands. And then if you continue up, this other 2 billion gallon reservoir is East Branch, and we own all this also in the headwaters. So with that being said, we're going to preserve these wetlands along the river in perpetuity. And also with this, in some of these projects, as we've brought before you, is we actually sponsor, by sponsoring this, we are going to take our project, which is the large diameter lining project 2019. That was a $5 million project we brought to you last year. So we are going to get a reduced interest rate. Currently, and it's the June loan, so I don't know what the interest rate will be. Currently, it's 0.73%, under 1% for 45 years. So by sponsoring this project, we'll now be able to reduce that by 0.1%. So it'll reduce it down to 0.63% if the interest rates are the same. So I'm just assuming in June, they're not going to vary much. And if you look at over the life of that loan, we're going to save about $125,000 over the 45 years on the reduced interest by sponsoring this project. So with that, this was all done with the watershed staff. We're very proud that they worked together with engineering to bring this project forward to Ohio EPA. So with that, I will take any questions, and I can quit sharing my screen.
Are there any questions from committee members? Mr. McKittrick?
Not really any questions. I appreciate what's going on with this. This is showing great responsibility to protect these lands. And I've been up there a couple of times since the beginning of the year and looked at the area. And it is of utmost importance for this to be done. Just want to say I'm very appreciative. Thanks.
You're welcome. It's just another way of trying to generate a little bit of revenue going to the water fund. As we know, we're cash strapped in the water fund.
Any additional questions or questions from council? Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the information, Mr. Luddle. I agree with Mr. McKittrick. This is a great grant program and use of that grant. I know, the watershed employees are very focused on, revenue, but also on, our protecting this resource that we have, these billions of gallons of water. Can you talk just a little bit about how this fits into broader planning efforts in the headlands? I mean, are there other sites in which you anticipate doing similar easements in the coming months and years, or what is? I know there was a study several years ago. What's the thought process there?
Well, we're working on a full evaluation of all our property, and we before this is when you put something like this on there, it's a highly prohibitive deed. Okay, you cannot do anything else. So before we would do that on other parcels, we would look at everything and do an evaluation on that. Now, these funds are hard to, this took a few years to get. So these funds aren't like there's $1 billion out there and you could start doing that, but we're always chasing these funds. And we are doing a master plan on all our lands up there in the highest and best use, yes.
Mr. Little, when do you think that plan will be complete?
EDG is currently working on it. I'll get back to you. I can't honestly say if it'll be done this year or not.
Sure, but once it is, it would be wonderful to see it.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Fusco?
Thank you, Ms. Connor. Does this ordinance also, reading it over, does it also authorize the actual easement itself, or is this just to receive the funds for the?
This is to put the easement, the restrictions on this land, yes.
Okay, so therefore we are, with this ordinance, we are giving not only receiving the funds, but we're also authorizing the easement itself to the Ohio EPA, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we're giving the easement as well on top. Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Mr. Little, what's your pleasure?
Consent's fine.
A
Motion for
to-
consent. Motion for consent agenda.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any other business before this committee? Hearing and seeing none, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Our next committee of the day will be the Housing and Neighborhood Assistance Committee, and that'll start at 3:15. Those committee members are Fusco, Swirsky, Samples, McKittrick, and Connor. Again, that will begin at 3:15 today. So we'll go ahead and stop our live stream and be back at 3:15. Thanks.